Joining us today for our work session regarding the Lake County Adult Detention Center. We're moving forward. Things are coming along, and as requested, we have a draft document, a resolution establishing a Lake County General Fund balance policy. Jason, do you want to comment? Joel, I don't know if you want to chime in, sir?
Yeah, I can take it, Commissioners. Thank you. Good morning. We spent 2 weeks ago researching a couple different policies from various public bodies throughout the state of Ohio, honed in on a county template. Joel worked on that, so I appreciate Joel's work on the one that's in front of you that I presented at the last work session. That has been through, Mr. Hackman took a peek at that. He's under the weather today. Approved to form. We also shared this with some of our outside consultants, Amanda Gordon, Michelle Hillstrom, who help us with bond financing, et cetera. Had a couple tweaks that really tightened up the draft policy that I presented last week. So the policy itself is in good shape. And then this week, Joel and I once again worked with Clerk Bell on the resolution that's stamped draft. That resolution, once again, approved to form by Mr. Hackman, and also had Amanda Gordon just take a quick peek at it to make sure that we were covering our bases. And as we spoke a couple weeks ago, this is a key variable. We've talked about it for a number of years under the previous finance director, Mr. Matus, about having this general fund balance policy to ensure proper fiscal management in the short and long term, and then also provides the wherewithal to address potential needs that we may know are coming at us. So everything is from administrative and review process is ready for your consideration when you feel ready to proceed.
So taking it from the top, this document came out of a work session that we had with our experts regarding bonding, bond counsel, and the underwriting, as well as the general oversight associated with looking forward to engaging the Adult Detention Center project. One of the things that the Moody's, for example, and Standard & Poor's, they're going to want to see, do you have a general fund balance policy? Right now, Lake County enjoys a AA1 rating. That's only limited because of the net value of the county. We could not go to AAA because we just don't meet that qualification. But that doesn't mean that we change the way we do business. But this memorializes that we have a minimum that we don't drop below the AA1 standard. Did I state that accurately?
Yeah, and we have a whereas in the draft resolution, just briefly paraphrase, whereas the policy is recommended by the GFAO, Government Finance Officers Association. That's a recommendation as a best management practice. We have another whereas recommended by independent bond agencies to assist with the financial performance criteria during a bond rating evaluation. That's right out of some of the documents that we received at that work session you referenced in October. So yeah, you're on point, Commissioner.
I do appreciate all the efforts you guys put into this, the diligence. This lines up with what I see other areas in the state doing. It lines up with what our experts told us to be focusing on, and I don't think we've painted ourselves into any corners here. I think we still preserved a great deal of flexibility. Again, we've never been in a stronger financial position, as I've said numerous times, but unfortunately we've never had more demands on that strong financial position. Commissioner Regovich, anything you want to weigh in on, sir?
So just to be clear, I know we said it before, that this allows, this is a standard practice for going through bonding and doing what we're trying to do with the new jail, so that a bond council will look at us in a favorable position moving forward, not just now, but in the years to come, so that it's a good practice to have for them to feel comfortable to lend that money, just to state it in kind of layman's terms.
Right, and I'll read the purpose statement. It's very brief, but I think it sums it up. The purpose of this policy is to ensure the financial stability and security of the general fund of Lake County, and to guard against cyclical changes in revenue and expenditures by taking a proactive approach to the financial management of the county. So I think that hits spot on what we're trying. And quite frankly, that's always been our goal. But this, I would argue, kind of memorializes that initiative and a policy document that's recommended by a couple different accounting trade organizations.
So I also have to say, great job for our staff over since 2000, excuse me, 2012 to create those funds and to be able to put us in a position to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, credit to former finance director Matus, former finance director Joel DeMar even, when he was finance director, commissioners past and present, for setting up those accounts. We continue to allocate dollars to those accounts. When we came out of the 09-10 recession, we had some catch up to do, and now we have that payroll liability account. We have a budget stabilization account. Our capital improvement plan is very healthy, but we're going to have some resolutions coming up the next couple of weeks on our courthouse HVAC. We're going to use $5 million out of ARPA. The commissioners wisely have said, let's do it all, let's do it right. So we're going to have $1.5 million or $2 million in capital improvements, which we're well budgeted to take care of those strategic long-term capital investments. And oh, by the way, the courthouses are probably the most challenging, significant structures to do construction work, as you both well know. So the foresight of past staff and boards and current has put us in this position. And Commissioner, we're going to have another call in the next week or so with our outside consultants as we start to fine-tune, not even fine-tune, but Joel and I have looked at various hybrid solutions on short-term, long-term. I think there's some other options that are starting to are percolating in my mind. They're a little bit more seasoned in Joel's mind just because of his financial background. We still have some homework to do on what that looks like. This is a little bit different than 30 years at X% with X amount of payback. This is what can we do in 5 years. You look at the market rates just this week, they're to our benefit. They went down a little bit. You remember we started this exercise, Commissioner Hammercheck remembers this, we were like 3.2, 3.52. Now we're 5, we're budgeting 5, and that delta is enormous. So while we don't have a lot of time on our hands, the next 60 days, whatever it is, we've had continuing conversations with Mr. Applebaum and PMC. We're going to jump on a call with him and Amanda, et cetera. Probably in the next week or two, we're trying to fine tune that on, I'll use Jason Boyd's basic terms. At what point do I need to call the auditor and get an auditor certificate that says it's 100 million, 90 million, 120, whatever it is, that we can sign a contract with our contractor? And so it may not seem that we're moving as fast as people like, but I think incrementally this is such a strategic and important decision that these baby steps, they're gonna prove beneficial here in the next 30 days. So, with Mr. Matus, we worked off that interactive spreadsheet that he had where we can plug and play rates, down payments, et cetera. We're still using that, but we're also looking at another spreadsheet that was provided by consultants on short-term, medium-term. So some different thoughts that hopefully in the next couple of weeks, Joel, month, we'll be able to get a little bit more in the details, because then we'll also have that first estimate. So yeah, I think we're still trending in a really positive direction. So with that, I'll answer any more questions.
I just want to thank everybody, and I know this is a process that had been going a lot longer before I got here. So I appreciate all that work that's gone in and how it's changed, and the metamorphosis of this is, I can see from the past, and it continues. That most people don't see is, there's meetings every week.
Yeah.
And with the sheriff's department and the input that they're putting in, and how they're really looking at use of space and things like that, and making sure we're building what we need. So.
Right. And you guys are extremely familiar with my infamous whiteboard exercises that I do, because I need to see stuff on a board versus a spreadsheet like the accounting type folks. I spent a few hours in the back conference room yesterday comparing our 22 exercise, what we didn't know that we now know. For example, sheriff's contracts. We had no idea what that. Well, we have a budget number on what that is on an annualized basis. Some of the other agencies, county prosecutors' salaries, we have that memorialized. So there's some of the unknowns now that we can start to accurately put budget numbers in. And we also have a year and a half's worth of revenue, investment earnings, reductions, and other things. So I am starting that process. I had Joel stop in yesterday as well, see what I'm missing, and then I'm gonna have you all in here in the next couple of weeks. And I talked to Mr. Hammercheck. I wanted to do that this week, but with my injury, I lost a couple days. But it's a little bit of a different exercise now than it was a year or so ago.
Thanks for your hard
Yep.
work.
Thank you guys.
And again, keeping things in perspective, what this general fund balance policy represents is this is looking on a go-forward basis, not just a snapshot in time. If we're going to be going forward and maintaining bond stability, bond rating stability over the life of the bond, we have to demonstrate that we have adopted policies that will maintain some continuity for debt service. And you mentioned we've got our first estimate coming up, the schematic design.
Schematic design.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yeah, that's go time. So right now we're going through the exercise to lock down and eliminate variables. This eliminates some big variables. So, okay, I'm very happy. This definitely is reflective of the research that we've put into it. I think this puts it in a nice summary form, and the fact that our experts are on board so enthusiastically, I think is an excellent sign. So as far as getting into application, well, let me before I get into that. So it sounds like our again, nothing against JP not being here, but it sounds like we're good to go. We can put this in the SIG file. We can start processing. We can get this thing on the agenda. It's, again, good faith effort, showing our bond counsel that we're doing the things that we were directed to do. Legal, you're okay with proceeding? We could have this on as early as next meeting. Commissioner Regovich, you good with that? We'll
Yeah,
get the SIG
that's,
file.
I mean, I think that's a smart way to go for it.
Excellent, excellent. And then starting to go through the exercise of, again, familiarizing ourselves with, as was recommended, just even for simple math, 100 million, going through some assumptions, the 30-year life, just getting a feel for how we would go through that exercise. And we could always change the numbers to our actuals, but we need to get that worked out so that we're on good solid ground. We're familiar. As much as we're familiarizing ourselves with the process, we also need to educate the public, because if we're struggling with locking all this down, I can only imagine what a reasonable person outside only getting glimpses of what we're doing would be thinking. So, okay, sounds like we had another relatively easy one. Is there anything else we need to go over today? I'm kind of looking at legal. It sounds like we've checked off the boxes on the critical stuff. Jason?
I could just, and I'll do the same at 10 o'clock, a brief update on the past week or two just of the Public Safety Center meetings. I had another meeting yesterday, a couple of meetings yesterday. Once again, as I've noted, it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse now, where they're talking, once again yesterday, level 0, which Jason calls the basement, and floor 1, which would be street level. They spent about 2 hours yesterday refining. Once again, we're at floor plan, so quick reminder, it goes program, that was accomplished last year, schematic design, which we're 70-80% in. That'll transition into detailed design, that's phase 2, if you will, and then we get into CD's construction documents. So we're still in that first third, if you will. The sheriff had a room full of his management guys in there yesterday talking movement, once again, of not only what happens if John Doe walks in and turns himself in. If they're in the lobby, how do we get him into a secure interlock? Just a lot of detail, not on just the movement of who you think is a regular citizen, but when he comes in and checks in and admits he did X, well now he's a whole other status. So how do we work that individual through a public body into a secure? So really interesting. I think we've talked to Chief Izzo last night. I think they're pretty close on getting level 1 dialed in where they want it. Level 1, floor 1, is the administrative side. It includes the sheriff's office, detective bureau, adult probation. Spent some time there. The chief will be sharing some information with Craig Berry on that. Conference space, the wellness of the employees. I know we've talked about the corrections officers who are in there. every day, having adequate break rooms, workout facility, locker rooms, all that is being considered down to the color palette. So that's the level of detail we're on now. At a subsequent meeting in the afternoon where we started looking at, this is in Commissioner Hammercheck's wheelhouse, what if a crane is placed here? Do we have to shut down Erie Street? What if a crane is placed here? How does that impact juvenile court? So we're already thinking a year down the road on lane closures. Can we use Burger King for a construction trailer? Contractors aren't interested in that. They'd rather prefer that for a laydown area. So we're looking at the site logistics of the site when we're still in, as I noted earlier, the first third of this process. But we're forecasting out what things look like. So kudos to the whole team from the consultants. We've started having some significant conversations on generators. Paul Stefanko has been great. What size, parallel, not parallel, inside, outside, manufacturer. These are 1 year lead time items in some instances. There's 3 big manufacturers that everybody appears to be comfortable with. But once again, you don't need a generator until it opens, which is 3 years down the road, but we got to order it yesterday. So those are some of those critical paths, items that are now starting to become, they were a little bit fuzzy, now they're starting to become clear in the process. I think our next in-person design meeting is 2 weeks out, and we continue to have our weekly calls. Today's agenda will have a resolution for a request for proposals for insurance brokers. There's a whole nother level of insurance coverage we need on a construction project of this scale. So PMC consultants led by Mr. Applebaum have drafted that for us. And that'll be published tomorrow in the News Herald and following Friday, due December 21st. We'll review those with Mr. Applebaum and then select an insurance broker to make sure that we're covered with all the necessary liability, et cetera. So thank you.
And just continuing on with that, again, of interest probably to the public is right down to the footprint, where the building would be situated, associated support buildings, parking, fencing, gates. Also, we did recently receive a rendering just to get a feel for what it would look like and where it's situated, along with the associated grading. Those kinds of things also help as we develop a feel for it. It's one thing to get the logistics, but does it look right? Does it feel right? Does it fit into the neighborhood? And again, we've been working very closely with the city of Paynesville to make sure that we're fully compliant with all of their codes and associated regulations, but also that the city is satisfied that we're being a good partner on this. I also think it's worth, again, we've been looking to the future. So one of the things that really impressed me on a recent meeting was the emphasis on, well, what if we did additional work? What if we ever had to expand? How would that impact operations that have to be remaining uninterrupted? That level of making sure you're not painted into a corner and kick the can down the road and make it somebody else's problem. Let's think it through, and the level of documentation. That's one of the things I think we can agree on, the open discussions, the way it's being managed. This is, I think, radically different, having been a worker bee back in the day, but the current jail, this level of interaction and diligence didn't happen.
I've been impressed with the movement that the sheriff department's putting into it, the staff there who are part of this process. Just to give an example, when we talked about a storage room and how they wanted to move some things around possibly, and that storage room would get smaller, but it's always like, well, if we add on to this in 20 years from now, we'll need that storage. And that's what we're missing right now in that jail, in our current jail, is we can't buy food in bulk. We need multiple trucks a week in order to maintain that. Well, if there's something on sale, we can't save money there. We don't have anywhere to put that stuff. So if we forego not seeing the future, hopefully we never need to add on to that jail, and it's adequate. But if we do, we're ready to do that. And that's in the kitchen facilities, laundry facilities. We have to take all that into account. So, we're not necessarily overbuilding it. It's just, for the future. And I think it was everybody's goal from the beginning to make sure we don't put ourselves in the position we are right now.
The level of details, yesterday's email exchange, I laughed, but it's important, was do you want welded or non-welded shelves in your freezers? I mean, that's the level of detail that we're at this stage of the game, you know, and because there's a food and kitchen consultant, and, you know, just the flexibility of freezer space, just stuff that I would have never even thought of was an email exchange on that. So on shelving and freezers, that we don't even know where the freezers are going to sit yet. So.
And you touched on it, technologies. You know, that was one of the challenges. Not only was the current jail obsolete the day we took possession of it, the technology was pretty much old when it went in, and it's been a problem for the entire life of the facility. Our director, Paul Stefanko, I have to give him high praise for the diligence that he's impressing upon this new generation of architects and engineers that are working with us, that, hey, these are the lessons that we've had to deal with and learn from. We're getting that feedback that shows that they're actually hearing us and taking us seriously. The level of communications, I think that Director Stefanko is really holding them to a very high standard, and that again, that interaction. You know, he comes off as old school. Well, doggone it, because it works. But we got to look towards the future, and he's holding them to a very high standard. And if they're going to make a recommendation, that there's going to be solid fact behind it, not theory, not a slick sales sheet that says, "Hey, this should work." You know, a history that says, "Yes, this does work. This is a standard, and here are facilities where it's actually in service. You can call them or even go visit." Which the other thing I want to add, the level of openness and how inviting they are to having us go out and take a look at examples in the field. The trip to Detroit, I think, Commissioner Regovich, you would agree that was enlightening. There were several things there that, you know, that old saying, even a bad example is an example of how you don't want to do things. The emphasis on prefabricated trucked in, boy, did they use a generous amount of caulking and grout. There's enough there you could have fixed Ford Road with it, right?
With a little experience in commercial kitchens, that's one of the most impressive commercial kitchens I've ever been in.
Yeah, I think that kitchen was probably as big as our entire 5th floor here, so it was.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, especially with multiple freezers, multiple refrigerators.
Or when you're feeding 2,000 folks a day, 3 times a day.
Yeah, and full loading dock just for their food services, storage, roll-up bays, compartmentalized, isolated. Yeah.
And we're planning on, once we get fully under contract with the contractor, we talked about that yesterday as well, another trip. As we start to see the layouts come, we're going to find a kind of a like feel, probably first of the year, start scheduling another one.
I was tired after that one. That was 1 million square feet.
Yeah. And again, the importance of having these work sessions, I just want to reemphasize, there are many things that are happening in parallel. There is a cause and effect, and we're analyzing that. I think in the interest of the public, our measured approach, learning and diligently moving forward methodically, is better than having to make snap decisions. Jason?
And I completely should have spoken earlier on, I emailed the board yesterday or 2 days ago on my efforts with Chief Izzo on grant applications to Columbus for future funding as well. So that is, we completed yesterday or the day before an application, so we'll continue, we'll continue on the application process to find funding anywhere that we can. So.
And I think it's also fair to say that our 2 House reps, our senator, they're all working diligently to try to find ways to make sure that Lake County is well taken care of. And candidly, again, this also bears restating that Lake County has been a good, and this one, John, this one's for you, John Music. We have been good stewards of the people's money, but we've also been punished for it. Counties elsewhere in the state of Ohio that neglected their facilities, that have been not supportive of their facilities, they're the ones getting the state money right now. And much of the language that they're using, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, we generated some of that 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, when the state started looking at jail funding, and then when they brought it forward, You know, we thought we'd be right at the front of the line, only to find out we went right to the back
South
of
of
the line.
I-70, yeah, those are the communities that received it. And I've said we're a victim of our own success,
Yeah.
and that goes to the corrections officers, B&G and Telecom for maintaining that used car to the level of a new car. So we, but we're to the point now, we're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars in that facility a year on Band-Aids. And as Paul said, do you want a 1-year Band-Aid or do you want a 10-year Band-Aid? And that's the discussion we've had in my 10 or 12 years. And so, now we're on the 1-year Band-Aid track because of the path that we're on. But they're not hundreds of dollar issues. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars of issues over there. So there's the life cycle of HVAC, et cetera, and the operational savings we'll have right out of the box with the new building. So.
No, and I think this also bears restating. It was about 2 years ago now that was hotly debated that although our facility is meeting state standards, it's the staff that is adhering to state standards. It's the crew that are part of the support team that keep that building running. It's the level of professionalism of management. Captain Brooks, nationally recognized for her efforts as top administrator. That does not mean that the facility is up to that standard.
Right.
I think you said it best, a used car. That it is a test, and again, this bears repeating because what I don't want to do is, I don't want to pay for that hill twice. We went through this debate, I think about 2 years ago now, and we actually had to have the top representative from the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections come join us, and then we had to have a follow-up Zoom meeting on the subject to state that just because we're meeting the state standards does not mean that the facility is the key. And I think something else that bears saying, the outer skin of that building is the secure perimeter of that building. So that's something that most people just don't seem to understand. So there's a lot there. And as we start to pick up the pace, as we start to get closer to what the cost is going to be, there's going to be a lot of variables that get reintroduced. So
You can walk right up to that building today.
Yeah.
That will not be the case in 3 or 4 years. Secure parking, separate public parking, completely different operation. And it won't look like a jail, it'll look like a civic building.
Yes, and that's the other thing is we basically, it's a brutalist architecture design. It looks more like a prison. It was done at a time when decisions were not being made as far as being good neighbors. And the city of Painesville has worked very closely with us, especially in the last few years. There's been a lot of partnership visions and basically revitalizing the downtown community. And again, having something look like a civic facility, something that's a good neighbor. And we're also being very respective. Again, this is the proper venue for this conversation. We're also being respective of the residential component that'll be on the backside of the building, making sure that we don't have additional traffic over there, that we're not having this 80-foot wall staring at them. I don't know if you want to get into some of the details there, because I know your background is planning, which is
Well, that's
also,
what, there's 2 facets to that. We want the urban edge to be right on around 20. So that building's gonna be tucked up as tight as it can with the civic presence and entrance. And then have that buffer on the north side of Jackson Street with the enhanced landscape berm with secure fencing that won't be, board on board. It'll be a brick, aesthetically pleasing, secure fence with the lighting appropriated the right directions, et cetera. And architectural features on the back facade that does not represent just a long blank brick wall, but there'll be features just from an aesthetic standpoint that'll fit in. So yeah,
and
I think a good example is our B&G Telecom building.
Mhm.
A lot of communities would have built a prefabbed building. That is a beautiful structure that that a lot of people know about. That what goes on in those 2 buildings or in that building.
And that was a great mix of pre-engineered structure, but also some aesthetic enhancements that were incredibly cost effective and are really proving to be, again, a good neighbor. Also, I think another demonstration of the level of detail and cooperation with the city of Painesville. covered awnings, porch areas, where areas that just make it easy to come and go from the facility being counted as part of the setback or not, the impacts on the residential versus Route 20, convenience for people, that finding that balance. And then again, also dealing with the maximum height and what the setback is based off of that. One of the things that we've pushed for is we're trying to limit flat roofs, because that's been sort of an ongoing maintenance problem, again, since we took possession of the current building. And as far as having equipment being accessible but not in your face right out in front, so you don't have running motors and all that humming and then have to deal with looking at it. If you plan it ahead, you can incorporate it in pretty much at the same cost. So again, going back to your planning experience, I will say you've been, I'm going to say you, Jason Boyd, have been a tremendous asset in this. And as we go forward, though, we are going to be thinking in terms of working closer with project managers. I know you and Gary Fedak were real heavy lifters on getting this administration building done. I think that jail is going to be orders of magnitude higher. So you're laying the groundwork.
That's where PMC has been dynamic. There's so much work that Ellis Katz and some of the attorneys behind the scenes are doing that is way over my pay grade. And I appreciate what Jeff and his team are bringing, facilitating and guiding me so I'm not missing stuff internally. So
Agreed, and that's where bringing in the experts and the professionals, and you named it, that has been our go-to organization from very early on in this process. Anything else for the good of the discussion? Joel, anything you want to add? You good? Okay. All right, well, if there's nothing more to add, I think we've had another successful and productive workshop. So thank you. I look forward to, I think the next thing we should be talking about, that our whiteboard discussion. Let's run some numbers so we can get a feel for what this is going to look like going forward, because we need to get that out of our system, and now's the go time. We're there. So, all right, if there's nothing further, I thank everybody for joining us today, and we shall re-engage before our next commissioner meeting then. So,
Our next commission meeting is Tuesday.
Jason, do you think you'll be, hold on, Lane, think you'll be able to do some whiteboard with us and talk this through? We've got
not by Tuesday.
Not by Tuesday. So forego, Joel's giving me this. Okay, so skip a week?
At least, yeah.
That'll
yeah,
work.
I mean, because we get as I said, Joel and I are starting to work through the whiteboard again, based on another year's worth of expenses and unknowns, et cetera. The other way to look at it is not how much does a project cost, because we don't know that yet, and we're going to have a ballpark, but how much does it cost to finance X? Those are exercises we can probably, do we have to finance 120? We have to finance 100? We have to finance 80?
Sure. But the exercise,
because I don't want to put a number out there that is going to change.
But hear me out.
Sure.
Our experts said to go through the exercise, just use 100 million as a working number. Mm-hmm. It's easy for math. Anybody who's familiar with math, you can add to it and take away from it so easily.
Perfect.
We know that's not going to be great under the circumstances if that was the number.
Right.
But if we can't agree on 100 million, we're never going to agree on 200 million. So let's go through that exercise. Let's get a feel for what it looks like, how it would line up with our, going to be soon to be newly adopted Lake County General Fund balance policy. So we need to lock this down. We need to get this exercise going so that we're all on the same page in the same book, because the public needs to see confidence. And one of the rating issues is leadership, management, and they're going to look at our engagement and how seriously we're taking this. So I don't want to kick that can down the road, because when that estimate hits, that's our go time, and we're working towards that. We're laying the groundwork for it, but we also now need to go through the exercise with actual numbers, not just words. So just to be abundantly clear, so we're not going to do anything next week, but we'll plan on the week after, the meeting after. That gives everybody enough time to pull that together, just enough to go through the exercise. Again, we're not, and we'll make that very clear that this is for an exercise. This is not hard numbers. This is just the exercise of making sure we got the mechanics down, that we can plug the real numbers in later for actuals. Okay, so with that in mind, if there's nothing further, I will close out this workshop and thank everybody for joining us today. Look forward to our next meeting.